Hi, welcome back to another episode of Tim's Garage. And we're trapped at home during this current COVID pandemic, and we're trying to make best use of our time on a Saturday. So I thought I would go out and see if I could repair something that annoyed me about my car after I did some repairs to it. When I first bought this car, it came from a cold climate, and in that cold climate, these plastic fender liners had cracked around the fasteners, and it's a pretty common thing that these fender liners crack, and they crack right through here in this location right here. So I bought new GM fender liners, but when I bought them, they came folded up in a box, and they were all scuffed up, and they looked really terrible, and it was very frustrating for me because I'd spent a lot of money. They were about 80 or 90 bucks a piece, and to have them go in and already be scuffed up was an irritation for me. So, back in the day, I used to repair plastic, and we would have collision damaged cars or other cars that had plastic components that would come in that would be stressed, and you'd see white crack marks in the plastic where it had been stressed and cracked. And what I found is that if you were very careful with a proper industrial heat gun, you could remove many of those cracks or those stress marks and or scratches and other white marks that made the plastic look opaque. So what I did is I took the heat gun out, and I decided to see if I could get some of those scuffs out of the inner fender liners because they look kind of terrible. The rest of the car is very pristine, and I wanted to see if I could fix those scuffs and try at least to mask them a little bit. And what I found is if you're very careful and very diligent with a heat gun, you can remove 90 to 95% of the mark and make it so it's not even visible. And I've already done the driver's side apron as well as I'm going to be able to do utilizing the heat gun, but I saved the passenger side so that I can show the technique on how to go about removing these little abrasions or these little scuffs that show up in the black plastic. Now, it's not an exercise for somebody who's not very skilled, and you do need a very hot, heavy-duty heat gun, and you need to be very careful because you can ruin it just as easily as you can repair it. But there is a way to repair it. I'll try to show that technique as best I can, and with that said, I'll pause here and we'll move over to the other side. Okay, so I've relocated over to the passenger side of the vehicle, and what I'd like to do is show you what some of these scuffs look like. Now, I'm not trying to dog GM for sending me lousy scuffed up parts, but transporting these big bulky fender liners is kind of difficult, and I'm kind of picky. So they came shipped with all of these scuffs in them, all over. You can see these scuffs, and outside in daylight, all of these marks, and there's a bunch down here and down here, all of those marks show up dramatically out in the daylight when you open the hood, and it just, because the rest of the car is pristine, I wanted to see if there was something I could do to get rid of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to concentrate just on this little area right here and show you how I go about doing this. Now this heat gun is fairly loud, so I'm not certain how the sound's going to work, but I'm hopeful that it's going to work just fine. So that said, let's go and try and see if we can make this work. So I've got the heat gun running, and what I'm going to do is just pull back just a little bit to show the technique of the heat gun. What you do is you heat up a general area of the area you're trying to repair, and you get the whole area nice and warm. And you want to be very careful. If you get it too hot and you reflow the plastic, you'll lose all of the texture, and you don't want to lose any of the texture. So you get it nice and warm, and I can test it underneath and feel how warm it's getting underneath. And as we start to heat up the fender liner, it'll start to get to a point where I can literally reflow some of these marks and get them out. And the marks, it's not dirt, these are actual scuffs in the plastic. So I'm going to get in here and work these out. And you'll notice I'm being very aggressive with the heat gun, moving it quite a lot. You do not want to hold it in one spot because you'll create a little shiny spot because of the heat reflowing the plastic. And that's a challenge, but it may actually happen that occurs. But for me, I really want to get rid of these marks, and this is the way I'm going to go about doing it. You need to be very careful not to touch the tip of the heat gun down onto the fender panel either. And as we heat these marks up, you can see they're slowly starting to kind of blend back into the panel itself. And it's a very delicate process. You don't want to get too aggressive with the heat and cause it to reflow the surface, lose the texture, and then everything goes shiny. So as we heat it up, you can see here, this area right here, I've kind of gotten rid of that one. Now I'm working this worst one that's up at the front here. You gotta be very careful as you're working these, moving the heat around a whole bunch and trying to make sure that as you heat it up, you don't lose all the texture on the panel as well. I've got some out here that I need to work a little bit more. Okay, and you can see the marks are starting to dissipate quite a bit. And as I heat it up, the marks are slowly starting to disappear back into the black. It's a slow process. Don't rush it and don't try to make it go too quickly, or you'll create those little pooled shiny spots, and you don't want those. So you can see here, this one right here is a little tough. It has some pretty bad scratches in there, but you can see that it's slowly starting to move away. I got a pretty bad scratch that's right there. Okay. You can see the heat gun is slowly making all those marks just kind of dull down and almost completely fade away. Got one more here I'll work on with this bit of video, and then I'll pause the video a little bit. Okay, so you should be seeing that all of these are starting to blend away. I did get it a little warm there. It's a little too hot. It's gotten shiny, but I'm working with a little bit lower light than normally, so you guys can see in the video what exactly I'm trying to do. Okay, there we go. All right. So in looking at the video, you can clearly see that this area right here, all of the marks have gone. Now you can see it's a little shiny right here. That'll dull down a little bit, and if we move and we can see the texture, you can see the texture is still there, but it's super warm. So we got to let that gloss level go away, and then over time it'll fade as well as it starts to cool. But you can see the scratches have been dissipated because the abraded edge has been reflowed kind of back down into the texture of the panel. So as we heat these up, this will all disappear, and I'll carry on with this particular fender liner with the same technique that I was using there and show you what it looks like when it's all done. Okay, the first video, it was difficult to show how the plastic was actually being modified. So we're going to do a second video of another area that might be able to allow us to get at it with the camera just a little bit better. So we're going to start right down here in the front. And you can see that we've got some scuffs here, and the scuffs are, it's not dirt or anything, it's just abraded plastic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to heat that area and warm it, and we'll see if we can watch that disappear as we do it. So I'm going to heat the whole area like I did before, and get the whole area warm. And we'll slowly bring the temperature of this plastic up, and then it'll absolutely start to dissipate the abrasions that we've got there. In fact, it's already starting to go. And it's hard to do it with this lighting, but it makes it easier for you to be able to see the actual change as we're doing it in the video. So it's kind of a compromise here, but as you can see, it's starting to slowly look just a little bit better. Okay, I'm going to get down here and see if I can look at it. I want to make sure I don't get it too hot. It does tend to become just a little bit shiny, and we'll have to abrade it again after, scrubbing it a little bit to make it a little bit dull. But it's amazing how easily it comes out. And the goal is to heat a large area like this. So if you do get a shiny spot, it's a transition over a large area instead of just a little puddle of shiny black plastic. So I'm working this, getting it all warm, and you can see it's all starting to change color just a little bit. And some of these scuffs are pretty deep, so there's going to be some residual. But I love the idea of being able to go over them and have them not be quite so obviously opaque on the black. So you can see this one is starting to change and smooth out. Let's just see here. Oh, that's very hot. Okay. Okay, and just heating this fender liner up. Trying to get those marks to come out a bit. Okay, and you can see they're slowly starting to come out. It's not a fast process at all when you're starting to heat these panels up. It really does take quite a bit of heat to get them to warm up enough that you can actually remove the marks. And it's not something I'd recommend you try with a hairdryer. You really do need a commercial type of actual heat gun that can melt plastic. Allows us to be a little more aggressive with the heat and get rid of those marks. These are pretty bad. I don't know if I'm going to get these out all the way. They're certainly better than they were, but I don't know if I'm going to get them out completely. They're starting to disappear right now, though. There we go. All right. There we go. Okay, it looks to me like I pretty much got that one completely out. Certainly well enough to be able to leave it, good enough for me. But giving you an idea just how much you move the heat gun to try and get these items out, and how you move it all around and try and broaden the heat into a larger area, so you don't just melt a portion of your fender liner. All right, so I think that kind of did it for that little area. Okay. And once you get the fender liner heated up, being able to move on to the next adjacent area while it's warm saves you a little time because you're kind of doing it all at once. All right, I'm going to leave it like that. It was scratched pretty well, so I'm just going to, ooh, it's very, very warm. Okay, so we're going to let that cool. And I think that's about as good as I'm going to make it. But just to give you a quick understanding of how easy it is to remove the abrasions on your fender liners, if you're stuck at home in your garage, maybe it's a project you can do too. Call it the Underhood Beautification Project. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that was helpful for you. And if you liked the video, please like it and subscribe. And I look forward to seeing you in one of my next videos.